A very good morning to all our viewers. I, Meenakshi Sharma, welcome you all to yet another webinar in our series of online sessions. And today we are in conversation with Mrs. Radhika Panikar Sirai. Mrs. Radhika is a publisher, entrepreneur, and educationist. She is the founder and CEO of Rumour Books India, which is one of India's leading publishing houses. She is also the official publisher of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Mann Ki Baat from the Heart of the Mind. Mrs. Radhika is also the founding director of Panchkula Arts and Literary Festival, that is PALF, North India's largest literary festival. She is also a member of Women Entrepreneurship Network, CII. Mrs. Sirai has been conferred with the highest civilian honor for women, Nari Shakti Samman, in association with the Government of India, and we congratulate her on her achievement. So today, Radhika is going to give us an insight into the world of publishing and will be sharing some tips on becoming a writer. So on behalf of Modern School family, I welcome you, Radhika.
Thank you so much, Meenakshi, for the extremely warm welcome. A very good morning to all of you who've just joined in the session. And I look forward to having an extremely interactive session with all of you, with insights coming in from publishing, entrepreneurship, and also, like the title, the session title says, we will be talking about living literature in the times of Gram and Flex.
Okay, Radhika. So to start with, I would like to tell my audience that Radhika had been a part of Modern School for some time. She was here for 3 or 4 years. And so the first question I would like to ask you is that what do you remember about Modern School the most?
That's a lovely question to begin with, Meenakshi. See, my most formative years, was spent at Modern School Kota. So instantly, what I miss the most and what I remember the most is, Deepak Singh sir. I mean, without a doubt, it has to be Deepak Singh sir and Seema ma'am, and of course the family. The amount of passion that they put into the institution was extremely inspirational for me to, for me to look at during my formative years. So to have them as role models during my formative years was something that I fondly recollect. And the second thing I fondly remember bragging about is the Modern School basketball court, So the amazing basketball court is also something that's etched in my memory, and that's something that I often brag about, when I go to other schools. So yeah, these are two things that I miss and I kind of fondly remember about Modern School Kota.
Yes, definitely. Deepak sir, our mentor. How can we forget them? Everybody. Being an Exmonite, he is been a mentor throughout my life also. So definitely. Now the next question coming over, that you are a publisher and an Instagram influencer, and these two seem to be poles apart, really different fields. So yet you have entwined them. And how did you make them happen?
See, with Instagram, I'm keeping up with the changing times. On the other hand, with publishing, I'm actually keeping a dying industry alive. Publishing is a lot of work, Like with Instagram, everything's very instant, Like the word Instagram suggests itself. Everything's very instant. The content is very compact and instant. Whereas with publishing, it's actually poles apart, like you said. Publishing a book takes any publisher about 7 to 8 months, But how Instagram publishing actually happened way before Instagram for me. Instagram is more of a creative outlet for me. Being a mom, I've often struggled with having me time. I'm sure a lot of moms who are a part of this session would relate to that. So Instagram became me time for me. It helped me feel confident within myself. And in fact, I'd like to make a revelation here that I started Instagram after I gave birth to my daughter, Remira, unlike other bloggers, So it's more of a creative outlet for me. Publishing is all business for me. So yeah, entwining the two for me, even though they seem poles apart, is it's kind of very natural. It just comes naturally to me, you know. And now that I've mentioned me time, talking about me time, I feel like everybody should have me time. You know, everybody should have a certain creative outlet that they indulge in. You know, they don't have to overindulge in it, but it's important to kind of find your creative outlet and indulge in it. So yeah, for me, the two things are poles apart, but it just comes naturally for me to balance the two.
Yeah, so that means that you are combining your passion and your me time, like your whatever activity you want to do in your free time. So you have combined them both, and then
Absolutely.
definitely, it is a stress buster. Then you do not feel
Absolutely.
stressed when you're working, right?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, definitely. So now the next question I would like to ask you is that you started your company at the age of 22, and you were at that point one of the youngest entrepreneurs of the country. So what, according to you, are the qualities that every young entrepreneur should imbibe from an early age?
To answer this question, I tell you there are a number of books that will enlist like a certain set of qualities that every entrepreneur should imbibe. But coming from a place of experience, I feel the most important attribute is passion. If you've got passion, everything else falls into place and will ultimately take shape if you do not lose passion throughout this journey. Also, entrepreneurship, I would like to state here, is no 9 to 5. It's a humongous emotional, professional, and financial commitment. Times when kids my age were busy fetching, passes for concerts, I, along with my partner, Mr. Dietrich Sarai, who's now my husband, we used to sit in a living room and wreck our head, coming up with ideas as to how to make this business work. Because publishing is something, that not a lot of it's not like becoming a doctor, it's not like becoming an engineer. So it's very unheard of, it's like a profession that very few people who are young of age would pursue. But for us, we both come from educationist families. So for us, reading was something that we were always passionate about. So for us, we saw there was a lack of good content in the market, and we felt like we could be the ones bridging the gap. So that's when we gave birth to our company. And at the time, I believe I was just starting my MBA. So I decided that why wait, to finish my MBA and then start my company? Why not just do it alongside? So that's when I started my publishing firm. And for all the entrepreneurs who are a part of this session, I would like to tell you that the initial 5 years of starting your business are going to be pure investment. If you're looking at easy returns, quick returns, then probably entrepreneurship is not something that you should pursue. If you want to become an entrepreneur, then the foremost thing you need to have is passion. You cannot, one day decide that today is the day I choose to work hard, and then the next day you decide that today I want to be laid back. The general image that people carry of entrepreneurs is that they are not disciplined. Whereas I would like to tell you that that is definitely not the case. Passion and self discipline are the basic things, basic attributes that, thank you, that every entrepreneur needs to have. So, for all the entrepreneurs watching this, if you're not passionate, if you are not self disciplined, if you wait, if you are the kind of person who can work, who basically can work only if there's a deadline, then entrepreneurship is definitely not for you. Entrepreneurship means self discipline and, of course, being passionate all throughout. You cannot lose passion even one single day of, this whole journey of entrepreneurship, and there is no end to it. It's basically like a lifestyle choice. So once you're an entrepreneur, the day you decide to be a little less passionate, probably may the day that your business may sink. So you have to be passionate every single day, and you have to be self-disciplined. You cannot wait for someone to tell you what to do, because people are actually, it's basically the other way around. You know, you'll have a set of people whom you would have to kind of command over. So yeah, that's, I think passion is the most important attribute every entrepreneur needs to have. Everything else comes along the way.
Yeah, right. Definitely. For pursuing any, I guess, for pursuing anything in any profession, then passion and self-discipline, that is time management, it plays a major role, definitely.
That's true. Absolutely.
So coming over to our next question, uh, there's one question from one of our viewers, and the child wants to ask that, can you tell your favorite book? Which is your favorite book?
Being a publisher, I think I cannot choose a favorite book. It would be almost, it seems as though you're asking a mother who her favorite child is. So for me, every book that I have published, laid my hands on, or read has been at that point my favorite. And my favorites also keep changing. Currently, my favorite would be there is a book that is. I would recommend that to anybody who just wants to be a little motivated and is seeking. It's actually a motivational book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? So you can get your hands on it. It's a very short book. And if you happen to read it, then you would know why I'm recommending it. So it's a book that every reader, every amateur reader should get their hands on.
Okay, so definitely I'll also try that book out. Now, next question. You are the official publisher of PM Modi's Man Ki Baat. So, can you tell us a bit about this exhilarating experience?
Sure. Like you said, you use the word exhilarating. To be honest, publishing PM Modi's Man Ki Baat was exhilarating in every sense of the word. Right from the time we, decided to publish it till the time we finished the entire work that was due on it. I almost forgot that I was the owner of the company. I felt as though I was an employee. That was the only time I felt as though I felt like an employee, and there was so much that had to be done. There were so many protocols that had to be followed that it was absolutely exhausting yet exhilarating. The endless protocols made us polish our professional shortcomings as well. Being young publishers, there were a lot of things that we kind of didn't pay heed to, that we understood the importance of when we published PM Modi's Man Ki Baat. But talking about Man Ki Baat, I would like to point out that the book is written by my father and Jerry Almeida, who at that time was one of the highest paid authors of the country. And especially because there are kids watching this session, I want to kind of talk about my whole experience on Man Ki Baat, and in general what I drew from it. There are times, when we don't particularly seem to like someone. We may not stand by their ideas, but as a wise woman once said, it's human to err. Kids tend to have extremely impressionable minds, which is why it is quintessential for the adults in the house to be involved with the children of the house. I recommend everyone watching this session to maintain a family journal. Uh, you know, Now what is a family journal? It is basically like a family diary wherein you jot down you can jot down anything. I mean, I'll just tell you what I do. So what we do is we jot down the days that we kind of tick the days that we've managed to spend at least 20 minutes with each other, and this 20 minutes has to be gadget free. It cannot be with any gadgets. It cannot be with the TV on. It cannot be with the phones around. In fact, we switch off our phones, or we turn them on to flight mode. So these 20 minutes are extremely important, especially if you have kids in the house. And by the end of the month, if you've managed to have more happy days. For example, if you've had, say, around 25 happy days, and out of that, only 5 are the days, when you kind of had disagreements or petty fights with each other or certain conflicts with each other, then you can celebrate at the end of the month. So, yeah, keeping a family journal during times like these, especially times like these, when we are forced family interactions and are not doing it out of will just help you create deeper bonds within your own family, and will help you feel more at peace, and will help you also improve your mental health, which at this point seems to be a huge point of concern in many families. So, yeah, during the entire process of publishing Man Ki Baat, even though there was no lockdown back, during those days, but still, I mean, there's something that I realized that when people would ask me, on a personal level, that do I stand for a certain party, I would always respond to them by saying that I don't stand with a particular party just because I happen to have published their work. I stand with a particular man's ideology, So I don't necessarily have to like someone, or I don't have to have a strong political view on things. Sometimes you can just appreciate people, and in fact, you should make it a point to appreciate the good that you see around, instead of always exaggerating the bad and sensationalizing the bad and talking about it, which is what the media seems to be doing these days. So, yeah, that was, if I could put, whatever I draw from the whole experience of Man Ki Baat, it was definitely exhausting but exhilarating as well.
Yeah, right, of course. And a very nice suggestion from you that we should definitely make a family journal so that we can write down all our good and the bad memories, and then maybe later on we can read, and we can maybe make changes in ourselves on how can we try and not have those bad memories with our family. Right. So coming over to our next question, how do brands compete for the ever diminishing attention spans of consumers these days? And can you throw some insight into this given your background?
Sure, that's a wonderful question. See, Meenakshi, there has been a huge change seen in the consumer behavior over a couple of years. Consumers these days are more aware. They take conscious buying decisions, and it's hard to influence them because, like I said, we're living in the times when every day means 100 notifications, and probably every day we're waking up to a new feature. Just day before yesterday, Instagram again, had a new feature wherein your story reactions no longer reach your DM. They kind of come pop up in your new notifications. All the kids watching this session would know what I'm talking about. So engaging with your consumers has become extremely challenging. In fact, for us as publishers, I completely understand the challenges faced, while kind of constantly engaging with customers and consumers and buying their loyalty. So this is where personal engagement comes into the picture. Brands constantly invest in a family of loyal brand ambassadors. You no longer want, of course, every brand does want quantity, but it's also quality alongside quantity. So, like I said, brands are buying customer loyalty and creating personal engagement, engaging personally with each customer. Marketing gimmicks like giving out free products, asking each customer to review or rate a brand, addressing complaints leading to lesser escalations is definitely helping brands. Consumers these days have more personal connect to the brands they choose, hence it's important to invest in consumer loyalty. So I think the only way to buy a consumer's loyalty can be with personal engagement. So, yeah, that's what, coming from my industry, I would say personal engagement is the key.
Okay, right. So now, one more question for you is that if suppose somebody is a writer, okay, and if you want to get published, then how can one do that? Because writing a lot of people do, but sometimes when it comes to publishing their own book, then it is a problem, because how to search for the publishers, what are the good publishers, or what are the different what are the different laws regarding publishing. And also, can you just give us an insight into this, that if somebody wants to get a book published, then what uh, rules or what steps they should follow?
Meenakshi, that's a very good question to ask a publisher. So I'm just going to break it down into a couple of steps, so that in case there are some aspiring writers who are a part of our session, they can probably take notes. So the foremost step to getting published is to determine your genre. Now, what I mean by genre here is that what is the genre that you want to be known for. For example, now if I say Durjoy Datta, instantly what comes to your mind is romance, right? If I say Agatha Christie, instantly what comes to your mind is crime, is mystery, right? So you have to, as a writer who is seeking to be published, the most important and foremost step is to determine your genre. Now, next, just penning down your story is not enough. Rough manuscripts that are not meaty, that are not polished, often land in a publisher's trash box. So if you want your manuscript to be noticed, you have to make sure that you've had it professionally edited, so that it's not just lost amongst other manuscripts. Now, 3, sending the manuscript to top 10 publishers with a personal message is definitely what's gonna get eyes on your manuscript. Bulk mailing your manuscript looks unprofessional, and the publishers instantly lose interest, when he sees a copy pasted mail. Most of us, we have apps wherein we know when any kind of content is copy pasted. So copy pasting, your manuscript or any content relating to your manuscript, when you're mailing your manuscript, it just makes a very bad first impression. So yeah, that's very important. Also, attaching your bio along with the manuscript is important. It just helps the publisher get an insight about who the author is and what is the potential that that author has. Now, number 4, in case you don't get a response within a year, what do you do? Now, in this case, what you can do is you can get a literary agent. Now, this is a step that I did not recommend as a first step for a writer, because sometimes literary agents can be expensive for amateur writers, and for writers who are just seeking to get published and who are not really sure of taking writing as a profession, I wouldn't recommend them to spend a bomb on fetching themselves a literary agent. But if you've mailed your manuscripts to say about 10 top publishers and you haven't heard from them, then you can always, seek a literary agent, and then of course he will handle the rest for you. Now, number 5, prior to submitting your work, you must get into an NDA. An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement. I'm sure most of us know. But yeah, for amateur writers, it's important to get into an NDA if you are submitting your work to a literary agent. If you're just mailing your work to traditional publishers like myself, then you do not need an NDA. Now, number 6, publishers always prefer authors who have a basic marketing plan in place. Hence, I request all the aspiring writers to do their R&D on the latest trends in the industry and submit a structured and realistic, most importantly, realistic marketing plan to your publisher. Number 7, you can create a pool of loyal readers even before your book is published by making an author website or a blog. Publishers are more keen on signing writers who have active engagement. So what happens is, when you're an amateur writer, you spend so much time in just writing your book. By the time you've submitted your book to a publisher, and by the time you actually you hear from a publisher, you're so exhausted that you have little energy left to kind of create a pool of loyal audience. So I strongly recommend that when you reach out to a publisher and you already have a blog or a website, there are chances that the publisher will pick you up rather than picking up anyone else over you. So yeah, getting that in place will be very helpful. Number 8, if you're establishing yourself as an author, you have to have a clear vision ahead. Setting aside a budget for your debut novel will definitely help you market your book personally as well. Now, publishers do market the book, but you have to have a budget for yourself as well. And number 9, which brings me to my last point, is to ensure yourself a publishing deal. You need to have someone influential to back your book. Getting a blurb or a quote from someone influential adds credibility to your content and instantly makes it more sellable. After all, publishing, just like all other businesses, is a business, and people should not mistake it is as charity. When you are submitting your work, you want your book to sell, right? And if you want your book to sell, if you want your work to sell, and if you want to make a name in this industry, then you have to keep a budget aside for it. There are no free lunches in this world, right, Meenakshi?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So I guess our future writers or who are into this field of writing or who have a hobby of writing will be taking these steps in mind. They'll be keeping it in mind and they'll be working on that. Now, coming over to our next question. What do you think that the publishers they look at when they are selecting any manuscript? So, if somebody is wanting to get the book published and they are writing a manuscript for that, so what points they should keep in mind?
See, being a publisher myself, the most important point is a clean manuscript. What I mean by a clean manuscript is a manuscript that reads well, is a manuscript that has and no manuscript can be perfect. There are bound to be some grammatical errors here and there, but if you have a clean manuscript, then that is very attractive to a publisher. Then, of course, there are secondary factors, like the author profile, engagement bandwidth, content sellability. These are other things that a publisher looks into before selecting a manuscript out of a pile of hundreds of manuscripts.
Okay, fine. Now, like you, as you know, we have a lot of children watching this webinar. So we have some questions from them as well. So they are wanting you to suggest some books, like one you have already suggested, but a few more books which you can suggest to the students that they should read.
Sure, Meenakshi, instead of books, I would want to suggest blogs. So if you books select me recommending books, I'm pretty sure no one's going to read them, because I personally believe that you don't choose the books that you read. The books that you read choose you. So whatever frame of mind you're in, you will be drawn to that kind of content. So instead of books, I would really want to recommend 5 blogs all freelance content writers who are watching this can read. So the first one is called Social Media Examiner. The second one is Copy Blogger. The third one is Freelance Writing Jobs. The fourth one is The Right Life, WRITE, The Right Life. And the fifth one is called Grammar Girl. So if you can just, you don't even need to subscribe to these, but if you can just look up these blogs, then you will get a good insight into the world of literature and some quality content.
Okay, right. So, like, you mean to say that reading a book at a time, instead of that, they should read those blogs, short blogs, so that they get into the habit of reading and they develop an interest on reading, and then maybe
Certainly.
later on they can pick up some books for reading,
See,
right?
if they kind of open up these blogs that I've mentioned, then these blogs are so engaging. In fact, all blogs that are there these days are so engaging. Content creators are putting such a humongous effort into keeping the engagement going on these blogs, that I'm sure that the recommendation of books on these blogs would be pretty pretty nice. And I'm sure the anybody who's going through these blogs would automatically kind of fall for that kind of engagement and would want to get their hands on the books recommended by them. And also it would be more personal, then they would know what kind of books they want, and then
Right.
they'd
So
be able to choose better.
you get a variety of content at the same place, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, fine. Now coming over to our next question, do you recommend anything for our aspiring writers? Any recommendations for them?
Um, Recommendations in terms of content, or what sort of recommendations are we talking about?
Content only, like if somebody is into writing, then what kind of content is in right now, or what they should try and write so that more publishers they can approach them, or they can approach more of publishers.
Okay, all right. So first things first, if you are an aspiring writer, you should have subscribed to some very good quality blogs, and you should make it a point to spend about 10 minutes, 15 minutes in reading what those blogs are offering. Two, like I said, you have to determine your genre. So if you're a writer, you have to see what genre draws you. Is it crime thriller? Is it nonfiction? Is it fiction? Is it romance? What kind of genre are you feeling like you could probably write a 100 pages on? So if you are able to commit, like say, 100 pages to a certain genre, then automatically I feel that is the genre for you. And if you just want to kind of, if you feel like, no, I'm not really sure, I'm an amateur writer, which is why you feel a little indecisive about the genre, then you can try and reflect upon the kind of movies that you're watching. If you're watching more of drama, crime thriller, mystery, then obviously that's your genre. So that's an easy way of determining your genre. Then again, you have to have like-minded influences in your life. So when you're a writer, you have to engage with other writers, fellow writers. You can be a part of certain writing communities that are there on Facebook, that are there on Instagram, so that you know what are the other writers doing, you know what are the latest trends in the industry, and it will help you, establish yourself as a debut author, as a debut writer. And when you're entering the world of publishing or writing, you won't be as naive. You would have known a lot because you would have already interacted with, communicated with seasoned writers, and they would have already exposed you to uh, the norms of the industry. So yeah, these are a few recommendations I have for aspiring writers.
Okay, fine. So now I would like to ask you one more question, Radhika, that as you said that the aspiring writers, they should work upon their blogging skills also. Okay, they should write a lot of blogs or read a lot of blogs, and even social media also they try and uh, publish their things on social media also. So can you tell us that how can they stay relevant on the social media?
Sure, that's a very good question, in fact. Now, staying relevant on social media is something that each influencer, every content writer is struggling with. Now, there are a couple of tips that I have in mind that will help you in staying relevant on social media. First things first, you have to know what the latest trends are. If you don't know what the latest trends are, then it's going to be extremely difficult for you to stay relevant, because the kind of content you would be making, or the kind of content you would be writing would not be would not kind of be abreast with the current times. So not a lot of people would be able to relate to it. So the first thing that comes to my mind is you have to be abreast with the latest trends. And these trends are changing every day. So you should know what's in and what's out. Now, the second thing, a lot of social media platforms are constantly, changing their features. So you have to know the latest features as well. Now, being a content creator myself, also being a publisher, and also having access to a lot of content these days, I think video content is something that has picked up a lot during these changing times. So utilize video content as it tends to stand out more. So if you are someone who wants to make a niche for themselves in this field of content, then you have to be comfortable with video content, and only then would you be able to utilize it. Then another thing is that you have to post on multiple platforms. So if you feel that I am only going to engage on one platform, there's no harm in it, you know. But the only problem is you're missing out on a lot of outreach that's actually waiting for engagement on other social media platforms. So if you want to stay relevant on social media, you have to engage on these different social media platforms. Then you cannot lose purpose, you know. You have to give people a reason to follow you on social media. It's all about who is subscribing to whom, who is following whom. So you have to have a reason. You cannot be random. If you are on social media, you have to give people a reason to follow you. So you have to find your niche to stay relevant on social media. Also, another point, and probably the last point, is that you can encourage tagging, but you should use hashtags strategically. So you cannot just aimlessly use hashtags, you know. Don't be very random. You have to have a strategy behind using your hashtag. For example, if you have a certain username, you can probably make a trend by using the same hashtag in every post. So that's, you know, that's another trick that a lot of content creators use. So encourage tagging and use hashtags strategically will also help you in staying relevant on social media.
Okay, so basically, use of social media will give you a more of exposure to the other people or to the publishers, and of course, hashtags which are in trend. They, if you use them in your post, then of course, more people you get exposure to more people, and you come in the search results of more of people, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now, Radhika, there is one more question from one of our student, and she wants to ask that if like we are into reading, and being a mother, though your child is a bit younger, but being a mother, would you prefer your child to read comic books or some other kind of books? I'm
Uh,
sure because the child must be getting some scolding from the parents of for reading the comic books or something like that. So if you can
See,
recommend it.
I think a larger part of what kind of parent you become depends on what kind of parents you were born to. So in my case, I was lucky, I'd say, that I was born to very liberal parents. So I was never told to choose this over that. I was always given the choice and rather the liberty to choose whatever I wanted. So I'm not sure whether this question has been asked by a child or a parent, but I feel you can read whatever you feel like, you know. And in fact, I'd like to share one thing that my father taught me that very few readers do actually. So when I would read a book as a child, and I would, you know, get all excited about finishing a thick book, I would go up to him and I'd say, "Oh, Dad, I've read David Copperfield, I've read Agatha Christie, I've read this, I've read that." He would always start asking me questions, you know, and then I wouldn't be able to answer them. So this is when he would tell me that it doesn't matter what book you've read, because if you've not read it enough, then you haven't read it at all. So he would always tell me, go back and read the book again. Till the time you can't quote from the book 20 years down the line, till the time you've not lived those characters, you've not felt like the protagonist himself, go read the book again and again. So whether you're a child or you're a parent, first things first, if your child is reading, be happy about it. It doesn't matter what book your child has picked up, but encourage the child to develop the habit of reading. If you shun the child for choosing a comic book over say some heavy books, then the child may just be dissuaded in reading altogether. So just encourage the child, and also try reading the book your child is reading. So that would encourage a lot of communication between you and your child. You know, that would kind of make the child feel important as well. So it really doesn't matter what book the child is reading.
Okay, yeah, definitely. I really liked your father's way of like teaching you that the number of books you read doesn't matter. If you read 100 books and you don't remember what is in that book is not enough. But if you read just one or two books and you remember what is there in the book, I guess that is the correct way of reading and being a reader, definitely. And I hope our students and all our viewers, they must also be listening to that. Now, coming over to our next question. You have been a publisher, you have been a social media influencer, and an educator. So, what's next for our this talented X19?
You make it sound very fancy. So I've never been confined to a specific goal. My goals are fluid, but my effort is not. So my effort, my effort of being a good mother, my effort of being a good daughter, a good wife, a good publisher, a good human being are constant. So aspire not to have more, but to be more is what I truly believe in. So if you ask me what's next for me, I don't quite know what's next for me. But whatever it is, I know as a matter of fact that I am going to be dedicated towards it, and I'm going to make a conscious and constant effort into doing the best that I can.
Okay, right. Now we have one more question from one of our student, and he wants to ask that if we want to be a writer, if I am writing something, I'm an amateur one, then what is better, whether writing with a pen on a notebook or using a digital device? What do you think that they should prefer in writing?
Sorry, come again?
If I am writing, suppose I am into writing, so if
Yes.
I should I write it on a notebook with a pen and a paper, or writing on a digital device is better than that?
And what is the age of the child?
I guess I can see the age, but maybe I guess it would be 10 to 15 years.
Okay, okay. See, I'm a little old school. So I feel if you are in the age bracket of, say, anywhere between, well, above, if you're above 17 or 18, then I would advise you to digitally write or document whatever you're writing. But if you are below the age of 17, then I recommend, I'm a little old school like that. I would recommend you to still relish the pure joy of holding a pen and pencil and writing things down and documenting them. Why? Because chances of losing your content are lesser. So, as a child, I believe you would be more emotionally connected to the content that you're writing. So, it always helps if you're penning it down in a diary, and then of course later on having an adult, or probably by yourself, if you can document it on some sort of a system, then that is what my advice to you would be.
Okay, so I hope the student must have got the answer. So she is 12 years of old. So I hope that you get your answer. It is better that you write with the pen and paper right now. And as you get old, then maybe afterwards you can
Because
pen.
I don't want the child to lose his or her content, that's all.
I agree with.
That's all.
I definitely agree with you on that. So now the last question, Radhika, a message for our session members.
Okay, so Ruskin versus Rakhi, literature in the times of Graham and Flex. The topic of our session makes me realize the importance and relevance of the changing meaning of quality content. And quality content for each individual, the meaning is very, very different. So for some, while they invest their time on Netflix or on Instagram, others choose to read a book instead. So you see, the meaning of quality content in both cases is different for both individuals. Here, I would humbly request all of you to find your balance between your indulgence. You absolutely cannot let go of the pure joy of experiencing reading over viewing instant content. And I'm sure the modern school family should abide by the modernized and not westernized motto. So that would be my message for all the session members who made time to join in this session.
Thank you so much, Radhika, and I hope all our viewers must have benefited with this session, and all the amateur writers who want to pursue their career in writing, or there might be a few of them who must have written something and they want to get it published.
In
So,
case, Meenakshi, just to cut you short there, in case there are some session members who have written something and would like to submit it, then you can submit your work to rumorbooks@gmail.com, and you can also mention that you were a part of this session. And even if it's not your complete work, I would be more than happy to have my editorial team review your work and polish it for you, just for free. So don't worry.
oh, that's so sweet of you, Radhika. So, for our viewers, so if you
Just
have,
to encourage young readers and writers.
so thank you so much for that, Radhika. So, any one of you who has any content that you have written yourself, so you can send it to Radhika at Humors Publication. So, and
Rumorbooks@gmail.com.
rumorbooks@gmail.com. So then they will be having a look at that, and if you need some, if there might be any suggestions for that, they'll be sharing it with you. So
Certainly.
thank you so much, Radhika, that you took out time from your busy schedule to have a chat with us and to let our viewers have an insight into publishing and what are the pros and cons and what are the risks involved in all this thing. And I hope all our viewers must have get benefited with that. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in for today's session. And as the festive season is going on, Christmas is around the corner. So I wish you the best of season's greetings. And I hope you all enjoy this festive season. And thank you so much, Radhika, for joining in.
Thank you so much, Meenakshi, and thank you to the entire Modern School family. It was absolute pleasure of mine to join all of you and to be able to share my experience with all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.